The concept of free trade is often presented as a win-win situation for all countries involved. Proponents argue that it leads to lower prices for consumers, increased competition, and greater economic efficiency. However, the reality of free trade, particularly for the United States, has been far more nuanced and, for many, deeply unsettling. The decline of American manufacturing and the shrinking of the middle class stand in stark contrast to the promised prosperity of free trade agreements. This raises important questions about the true impact of these policies and the need for a more balanced approach. The idea that free trade benefits everyone relies on the assumption of a level playing field. All countries must adhere to similar labor standards, environmental regulations, and government subsidies for this to be true. Unfortunately, this is often not the case. Developing countries eager to attract foreign investment may lower their standards, creating an uneven playing field that puts American businesses and workers at a disadvantage. Furthermore, the benefits of free trade are often unevenly distributed. While consumers may enjoy lower prices on imported goods, these savings can be offset by job losses in the manufacturing sector. This leads to a decline in wages and purchasing power, ultimately harming the very consumers free trade aims to benefit. The free trade experiment, as implemented in the United States, has yielded mixed results at best. It is time to move beyond simplistic narratives and engage in a more honest conversation about the costs and benefits of globalization. Only then can we develop trade policies that serve the interests of all Americans, not just a select few. The decline of American manufacturing is a complex issue with roots in various factors, including automation, technological advancements, and global competition. However, the role of free trade policies in accelerating this decline cannot be ignored. The signing of trade agreements like NAFTA and the granting of permanent normal trade relations to China led to a surge in imports from countries with significantly lower labor costs. This influx of cheaper goods put immense pressure on American manufacturers to compete on price. Unable to match the low wages and lax regulations prevalent in many developing countries, American companies faced a difficult choice: relocate their production overseas or risk going out of business. The result was a wave of factory closures, job losses, and a hollowing out of the American industrial heartland. While some argue that these job losses have been offset by growth in other sectors such as the service industry, the reality is that many of these new jobs offer lower wages, fewer benefits, and less job security. This has contributed to the widening income inequality and the shrinking of the middle class that has characterized the American economy in recent decades. The decline of American manufacturing is not just an economic issue, it is a social and political one as well. The loss of well-paying manufacturing jobs has had a devastating impact on communities across the country, leading to increased poverty, crime, and a sense of despair. It is essential to acknowledge the role that free trade policies have played in this decline, and to develop policies that support American manufacturing and create good-paying jobs for American workers. The fundamental problem with free trade, as it has been practiced by the United States, is its one-sided nature. While American markets have been open to a flood of imports, many of our trading partners maintain significant barriers to American goods and services. This creates an uneven playing field that puts American businesses and workers at a distinct disadvantage. For example, China, despite being the world's second-largest economy, continues to engage in practices that would be considered unfair trade by any measure. These include currency manipulation, intellectual property theft, forced technology transfer, and massive government subsidies to domestic industries. These practices give Chinese companies an unfair advantage, allowing them to undercut American competitors and capture market share. The result of this one-sided free trade is a massive trade deficit for the United States, which has reached record levels in recent years. This deficit represents a loss of economic output and jobs that could be staying in the American economy. It also makes the United States increasingly reliant on foreign creditors, particularly China, which holds a significant portion of U.S. debt. This dependence on foreign creditors gives them leverage over American economic policy and undermines our national sovereignty. It is time to recognize that free trade, in its current form, is not serving the best interests of the United States. We need a more balanced approach that prioritizes the needs of American workers and businesses and ensures a level playing field in the global economy. The use of tariffs, taxes imposed on imported goods, has become a contentious issue in the debate over free trade. Proponents of tariffs argue that they are necessary to protect American jobs and industries from unfair foreign competition. They point to the success of tariffs in the past in nurturing the growth of American industries and argue that they can be used strategically to level the playing field in the global economy. Opponents of tariffs, on the other hand, argue that they lead to higher prices for consumers, retaliatory tariffs from other countries, and ultimately harm the economy. They argue that tariffs are a form of protectionism that stifles innovation and prevent American businesses from competing globally. The reality is that tariffs are a complex tool with both potential benefits and drawbacks. Used strategically and selectively, they can be an effective way to protect American industries from unfair trade practices and to encourage other countries to adopt fairer trade policies. However, if used indiscriminately or as a blunt instrument, they can lead to trade wars and harm the economy. The key to using tariffs effectively lies in a nuanced approach that considers the specific circumstances of each industry and the potential impact on the broader economy. A well-designed tariff policy should be targeted at addressing specific unfair trade practices, such as dumping or government subsidies, rather than being used as a blanket measure to protect all industries. It should also be part of a broader strategy that includes investments in education, infrastructure, and research and development to enhance American competitiveness in the global economy.